Well, hello, my Mercurial mercenaries! Pizzazz. Remember in the old days, I used to do what I used to call time-wasting videos. This is one of those videos. If you've got other things to do, like getting out of the house, switching off your TV set in the other order, switch off the TV set first, don't leave the house and then try to switch it off. That will involve leaning through the window, which you could do it with your remote control, but then you'd have to take your remote control out with you. Switch off your TV set, go outside and do something more interesting or less boring instead. If you're still here because you're like me and you just want to fill your time, because I keep saying time's a valuable commodity, but sometimes you just need to fill your time, and you need to fill it with someone who's kind of going to strip off and pretend that he's in a kind of 1930s Noel Coward. Hello. So it looks a bit, actually doing all this looks a bit odd, I think. Don't you think? A little bit odd. This is a little bit suggestive. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this back on again. I'm going to put it back on again, alright? Even though it's boiling hot in here. I was just going to talk a little bit about the greatest albums of all time. That doesn't involve having to scratch your ear. But if you notice, because I'm on camera, I scratched my ear purposefully with that knuckle there on the finger, because then that looks better on camera and less manky and chatty on camera than it would if I did that. Alright? Your people on YouTube would talk to you like that, and they're doing that, and you just think, for Christ's sakes, mate, get your finger out of your ear. Just going to talk to you a bit about what they talk about usually, sort of people like that. Politics, maybe. Trump at the moment, and the alt-right, or perhaps a bit of gaming, and they'll talk to you, and they're doing that, and you're thinking, that's all fine. This is all fine. Actually, they don't do that, do they? Because most people will tend to put random games on the screen. I don't really get that. The biggest YouTube channels out there, because I'm small fry, I'm like a minnow. Can you fry a minnow? Can you fry a minnow? If you can fry a minnow, I don't know why I did that with my eyebrows. Every time I talk about minnows, I tend to do that with my eyebrows, which also has the added effect of creating a series of lines across my forehead. And that's another thing. Is it forehead or forehead? I tend to go with forehead. Foreskin, forehead. These, the most popular channels out there do tend to have random computer games playing, and they'll talk over the top. And even though it's a random game with no bearing on anything about what the person's trying to say, yeah, I still find myself watching it. So someone will be talking about the latest Angry Joe situation, or the SJWs versus the alt-right, the SJWs. It took me a while to work out that meant social justice warrior, because whenever I hear three letters that start with an S, I'm always wanting to do soapy tit wank. Because when I grew up, it was always STW. Everyone, all boys, all men, really wanted STWs. And then I have to get that out of my mind. It's not STW, it's SJW. Totally different. So on the subject of the greatest albums of all time, I found a website on the screen right now. Now, the reason I found this, I don't know why I'm doing it like that either. Why am I doing that? Yeah, I don't know, there's nothing, no, follow me around the room. My eyes are drawn to it, those games playing. They're on the screen playing, and they're talking about soapy tit wanks, and I'm thinking, that's all well and good, but he's gone around that corner, he's shooting that person. It doesn't matter! They should put a black screen up, or a white screen, a black screen or a white screen up, or a red screen, or a green screen, green screen, a coloured screen. Put a coloured screen up and just talk over it. Don't give me video, don't give me, I was going to say inane, picked up on the use of the wrong word. I was thinking, I wonder if I've already listened to the best King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. That's what I was thinking. If any of you, if any of you out there I should need a puppet to do that. I don't if I had a puppet, I've got a puppet. Do a puppet. See, I reckon we could do all my videos, right? Just pretend there's a black screen up. What was that? I mean, you know you've... Huh? What was that? Are you talking? I've got to look that way. You've got to talk to me. You talk... You don't talk... You talk to me. Talking to me? Or chewing a brick? Why did people used to say that? Talking to me or chewing it. You looking at me? What the hell did you just say? You looking at me? He's trying to say, you looking at me. What you're going to say is, you looking at me, kid? You looking at me, kid? I don't know. We need to sort your voice out because you sound very much just like me talking through my teeth. No, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. You are a cocksucker. Did you understand what you just said then? Because I'm not so... You're a cocksucker. What was I saying? King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard. So I don't think any of my Lizard Wizard fans will be watching this. This will be my old school Mercurial Mercenary fans watching shit like this. I've been listening to a really exciting band from Australia. First mentioned to me, I think, by Fishy Paw, and found just by perusing I was, and I found this band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and it's very important that the Lizard Wizard. I was speaking about this last night to the Perfect 10, and I said, does it make any difference if I say King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard or King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard? And she looked at me like I was talking crap, quite rightly so. And I said, let's talk this through, I said. Let's talk this through, okay? Now, let's think about a lizard wizard. So this is a lizard wizard. So this is a wizard who is a lizard because he's a lizard wizard, right? But what if I said wizard lizard by mistake? Wizard lizard. So let's think about what a wizard lizard is. A wizard lizard is a lizard who's a wizard. A wizard lizard is a lizard who's a wizard. And a lizard wizard is a wizard who's a lizard. Makes a difference, does it? Makes absolutely no difference. Ignore the fact this cup says Mrs. No one's picked me up on it yet. I like to have cups that have feminine, feminine. Oh, that was a rabbit hole to go down, wasn't it, my mercenaries? A rabbit hole to go down. If you ever want to gargle out a word to cleanse yourself after doing a kind of verbal trip up, and if you've got the likes of Podrick Floyd about to seize the day on something you've said, then just cleanse your palate by saying Llanbai pwll gwyndiaeth o geirich gwyn Robert Lantis Silio go go goch. Say it slow, say it fast. Llanbai pwll gwyndiaeth o geirich Lantis Silio go go goch. Anti-establishment Zarianism. I was looking to see whether... Right, and I've listened to a few King Gizzard albums now. I started with Murder of the Universe, and I went through... Then I did Nonigan Infinity, and I went to I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, and then I also did Flying Microtonal Banana. And if anyone is watching this who's a Gizzard fan, I haven't yet done any of the things you've asked me to. I haven't gone and watched any of the Lizard Gizzard on YouTube, but I will, and I'm looking forward to the day I do it. And the day I do it, I think I'm going to drink a lot of beer and just bask in live versions of all this shit I've been listening to. And I've got to say, if you guys out there haven't been listening, and I know some of you have, you've been private messaging me, with one person in particular who's kind of trying to be on board with this, I hope you agree, if you have been on board for the ride. On board? You can be on board. One of the most exciting bands of recent years, perhaps one of the most exciting bands of all time.
I am worried they'll let me down when I finally watch them live. But who knows? Many a time I have fallen in love with music. Fallen in love with it. And then when I've seen the people behind the music, it doesn't alter the fact that if music's exciting, it's exciting. And just because someone who perhaps looks like me makes it, meh. So I was thinking, have I already listened to the greatest King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album? Or is it yet to come? So I typed it into Google. I typed in, what's the best King Gizzard? And this site here came up. This site here came up. And this is the order. Now this site is the besteveralbums.com, and it's like an aggregate. Isn't that like cement and concrete? What word am I thinking of? It aggregates. See, it still sounds like I'm wanting to build something. It puts together all the best of. You know, you get like your Rolling Stones chart, the Rolling Stones best of the top 100 albums of all time, and you'll get the NME best 100 albums of all time, and Q magazine and Select magazine, and I don't know, the New York Times, the New York Dolls, Sex Pistols. Oh, I'm completely off track again. It's not good enough. This is decaffeinated in an effeminate cup. Decaf in an effeminate cup with almond milk. Pipe. It's my pipe. It's the prop. This is just a prop to make you think that I'm more gentlemanly than I really am. It's just a prop. What was I saying? It aggregates. So it takes all those lists of the greatest albums of all time and it puts them all together, and it lets you know what if you had just one chart of all the charts ever published. This website, I think, because I read into it, gives you the overall view of the music world. Now, I wish I hadn't already looked at this site, because I would like to, I like to go into things blind and have my first reactions just onto the screen. But I haven't. I've already looked at it. And I noticed that at number 1, appearing in 89 greatest charts. And this is an issue I have, which I'm going to bring up in a minute, as to the downfall of this site. Non-Again Infinity is at number 1 in the overall chart of the best King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard albums. And its overall rank in the greatest albums of all time is 3083. That's quite high, isn't it? What do you think? Out of all the music ever released of all time, Non-Again Infinity is at 3083. And I haven't yet decided what my favourite King Gizzard album is, because I've just been putting it on, listening to it, absorbing it, moving on. I need to listen to more, I think. But so far, I think the one that did probably have the most impact on me probably was Non-Again Infinity. So it's nice to see it at number 1. Or at least it's interesting to see it at number 1. I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. I like that album. I very much like that album. Flying Microtonal Banana at number 3. I thought side A of Flying Microtonal Banana was fantastic. And interestingly, at number 4 is an album called Paper Mache Dream Balloon. So perhaps I need to listen to Paper Mache Dream Balloon next. So I'm going to do it, I think. I'm going to do it. On a completely separate note, I notice, and it's crept up on me, it's just crept up on me, but I'm approaching, and this is quite unbelievable, because you know I'm a small channel, as small as they come, small minnow, small fry. Can you fry a minnow? I'm doing that with my eyebrows again, and the lines there, show my age. I'm approaching 500 subscribers. 500 subscribers. I thought, what should I do? I was gonna have a party. Remember that, my mercy. I was gonna have a party when we reached 100, but it kind of came and went. And then 200 came and went, and I don't know if I had a chance with the 300. 400 passed me by. But 500, we can celebrate 500. It could still take a few weeks to get there. But 500, how about that, eh? What I'm doing that for. It's not a good pointer. Better than the knife I used the other day when remember I was drumming with a knife? What could I do for 500? Do you know what I thought I'd do? I thought I could in some way, I don't know how, but I could in some way give away a copy of, I don't know how or why or how I'm going to do this, but I could give away a copy of, still in the cellophane wrapper, of the 11th Hour Initiative's debut album, Escapism. Still in. See that? Still in the cellophane wrapper. See the track listing? And I'll hold it the right way up. See the track listing there? See that? I know what I was thinking. I was thinking of doing that. No. Oh, where's my hat? I haven't got my hat. What can we do, Eddie? Richie, I've got a great idea. What is it, Eddie? To drink that. I could do a first reaction, not a first reaction. What do you guys keep calling it? You keep calling it something. I'm going to put chin out like that when I say it. You keep calling it something. Reaction. Just reaction. I could do like I did with the 11th Hour Initiative's The Only Way Out Is Through. I could do a reaction video to listening to this album. This album that was released in 2011, a long time ago now. So long ago that this would be like listening to it for the first time for me too. So perhaps I could do a reaction video listening to Escapism, an album that I made. And perhaps I could think of some way of doing something that involves me then sending a copy of this out to one of you. What do you think? Do you want it? Do you want it? You don't want it? Ah, screw you! I apologise, my mercenaries. This shirt is about 20 sizes too big for me. So that's better. If I put a bulldog clip or a fold back clip just on the back there, see what difference that would make? Look at that! Look at the difference! Could do that. I was watching Guitar Struggles earlier, and he said just for the benefit, I think, of the UK audience, he said he lost a stone, and he said he's not going to do that thing that women do, where they lose some weight and they're immediately in the tightest clothes they can get on. That, my friend, is bollocks. As Perfect 10 told me, if it does up, it fits. And when I put those trousers on the other day, if you remember, they did up. Couldn't breathe, but they did up, so they fit. That's what you want to do. Bit of that, isn't it? Hey? Bit of that. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So don't worry about it, mate. If you want to wear a skin-tight fluorescent yellow t-shirt with Guitar Struggles says relax on it, you go ahead. You do it, mate. You do it. I'll be behind you. Well, not behind you. Poised like this. I'll be in front of you, but I'll be supporting you. Not cupping. No cupping. No cupping. What was I talking about? I'm going to put the fan on. I'm boiling hot. I'm going to put the fan on. Wait. I now have a fan blowing, but it's under the desk, and it's blowing my feet. Is that still sexual? To have your feet blown? Quentin Tarantino's got a foot fetish, hasn't he? What is the technical term for foot fetish? The bulldog thing. That tucked in there. That tucked in, nipping that round there. Clip there. That needs to go up. That needs to go up. That should be done up there. That should be up. Come on. Come like that. You can come like that. A bit like that. Like that. Like that. Alright?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh, sod it. Holy shit. I was on this site and I was thinking, okay, this is good. But what is the greatest album of all time, according to the charts? The 100 best of charts. Now, if featuring in charts is one of the ways you're going to get up the chart, then it stands to reason that being an older album is going to give you more of a chance. Because, for instance, just say that Non Again Infinity is in fact the greatest album of all time. Well, it's only figured in 89 charts. If you go back in time, I'm trying to think what would be at the number one spot. Now, I know because I've accidentally looked. But before I looked and ruined it all, I had to guess to myself what's going to be at the number one spot. And I want you to do that now. I want you to do that now, too. Don't do it twice. Just do it once. But just try and guess what's number one. Now, I thought it's probably going to be something like Dark Side of the Moon. Honestly, I thought it's going to be Dark Side of the Moon, Sgt. Pepper. It's going to be one of those two, Dark Side of the Moon or Sgt. Pepper. And I thought, Non Again Infinity only gets the chance to appear in 89 charts. Dark Side of the Moon or Sgt. Pepper will get the chance to appear in say, for instance, this takes into account all the different years of the different charts. So, for instance, in 2012, Rolling Stone would have put out 100 greatest albums of all time chart. And in 1996, Rolling Stone might have put out 100 greatest albums of all time chart. And Q magazine might have done it a few times in the 90s. And all those times, Dark Side of the Moon could have figured each time. But an album created after these charts couldn't have figured in them. So if you've released an album today that is one of the greatest albums of all time, you haven't really got a chance here. This is biased towards, I think, towards old albums. So I thought it's going to be something like Dark Side of the Moon. Shall we have a look, my mercenary? Shall I put you out of your bloody misery? When we go up to overall chart, click. I've got this thing. I've done this before. When I press click, because I do that with the button so hard, I bang the button so hard it doesn't work. What you've got to do is like this, look. This is the list of the greatest albums of all time, according to all the charts combined into one. And it surprised me that Radiohead are at number one with OK Computer. It did surprise me. Now, I'm not so sure why it surprised me, because I remember when OK Computer came out, and for a few years after that, it was topping the greatest albums of all time charts. People were pretty soon after its creation putting it above the likes of Dark Side of the Moon and Sgt. Pepper. And I think every year since 1997, when these magazines and websites, I suppose, release these charts of the 100 greatest this and the 100 greatest that, OK Computer always figures there or thereabouts at number one. So is it a surprise that it's therefore at number one? Probably not. At number two, Dark Side of the Moon. Number three, Abbey Road. So Abbey Road ends up being the highest ranking in the greatest albums of all time nonsense. Abbey Road beats Sgt. Pepper. Revolver beats Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper beats... No, Sgt. Pepper doesn't beat Sgt. Pepper. So in the top five greatest albums of all time, according to the people that get paid to say these kind of things, the Beatles have 3 albums in the top 5. That's quite something, isn't it? Radiohead are at number 6. They've got the number 1 spot and the number 6 spot. And then we've got Arcade Fire, who I hate to admit I don't know much about. I haven't heard this album. Led Zeppelin 4, never mind. Velvet Underground. So, all I really wanted to talk to you about really on my mercenaries was, do you agree? Does anyone out there agree that OK Computer is the greatest album of all time? And if there are if there are Radiohead, forehead, forehead, If there were Radiohead, forehead, Radiohead, forehead, Radiohead. If there are any Radiohead fans out there, do you agree that OK Computer is the greatest album of all time? No. Do you agree that OK Computer is the greatest Radiohead album of all time? Because that's a whole argument in itself, isn't it? Another thing, before I leave you, because I know I've been talking for bloody ages here, another thing I can do, I noticed, is we can look at different decades. And I thought that would be interesting. Because I went straight to the 80s. And I thought, what is going to be the number one album of the 80s in these charts? And I want you to play along. This could be like a game now, can't it? Because this is a time waster video. So we don't have to worry about whether I'm wasting your time, because I told you at the beginning. If you had to pick, I don't know why in that voice, if you had to pick the greatest album of the 80s, or the album that you think will feature in other people's greatest charts, Rolling Stone, Q Magazine, Time Magazine, whatever, what album are you going to pick? I picked Thriller by Michael Jackson. That's what I picked. And if I had to pick, right, let's just think it through then. So I'm picking Michael Jackson's Thriller as number one album of the 80s, right? But let's just think about what other albums could be contenders. What was that Dire Straits album? Brothers in Arms, was it called? That was a big seller. But are the likes of Rolling Stone going to put that high? I don't think so. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. I reckon that's going to be up there. So, what's your pick? Say it out loud now. For number one album of the 80s. Say it. Right, let's have a look. 80s. I'll just click the button gently. 80s. These are the highest ranked albums of the 80s in best of charts. And I was, I'll say I was shocked. I was shocked. At number one, the number one album of the 80s, according to the, and this is according to the mainstream in some ways. If you think about the sort of magazines we're talking about here. The Pixies, Doolittle, is at number one. The Pixies. Now, I haven't listened to the Pixies for a couple of decades, but I do remember liking the Pixies. Back in a time when I used to listen to, I was listening to like Bleach by Nirvana and Nevermind, and I was listening to Mudhoney and all the Seattle stuff. I was listening to the Pixies a little bit, and what were they called? Pavement and stuff like that. I was listening to the Pixies, but I wasn't a huge fan, but I did appreciate them. And the Breeders and stuff like that. But the Pixies got number one. The Queen is Dead by the Smiths at number two. The Stone Roses, number three. The Joshua Tree, Talking Heads. Disintegration by The Cure. Daydream Nation by Sonic Youth. Closer by Joy Division. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. Thrillers at number 10. I was so the two that I thought would be in the chart, they're there, but they're 9 and 10. How wrong was I? Is it because I was trying to think too much about what other people would say is the greatest album of the 80s, rather than putting my own spin on it? Because this surprised me. If I had to pick my favourite albums of the 80s, I probably would put Disintegration by The Cure in there. Because that album is, it's art. It's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful album. But I didn't in a million years think that it would be in this chart. Likewise, Joy Division making the top 10 of the greatest albums of the 80s. It should probably rightly be there, but I kind of didn't expect it. So for this reason, and look at this, let me just show you the charts we're talking about here. The type of charts we're talking about are the top 500 albums of all time by the Stones from 2012. The 100 best albums of the 2000s by Rolling Stone from 2011. The 100 best albums of the 90s by Rolling Stone. The 100 best albums of the 80s by Rolling Stone. And all the years that the magazine published it. So you can see it's proper. It's not just Rolling Stone. If we carry on here, you can see that we've got VH1, top 100 albums. Billboard, the NME. So it aggregates them. What's the word? Congregates, aggregates them together. So, we're going to play this game again, my mercenaries. We're going to play it again. And I want you to tell me, we're going to look at the greatest albums, bulldog clip, like that, pull your stomach in. We're going to look at the greatest albums of the 1970s. And I want you to think now what's going to be at number one in the greatest albums of the 70s. And I had to think about it. And what did I think? Can I remember what I thought of? I thought that Led Zeppelin would have quite a high chance of being the best album of the 70s. And I thought it would be Led Zeppelin 4. I mean, if Led Zeppelin 4 figures in the greatest albums, in the top 10 of the greatest albums of all time, then you would think that it would probably be the greatest album of the 70s. What am I talking about? Dark Side of the Moon. Greatest album in the 70s. And with Led Zeppelin 4 perhaps in second place. What would you put? What do you think is going to be? It's two different questions, isn't it? What do you want to be the greatest album of the 70s, and what do you think the overall chart will say? I would want an Alice Cooper in the top 10. And I'd probably put Love It to Death there. Or $1 Billion Babies. I would want Dark Side of the Moon there, I think. I'd want Wish You Were Here, to be fair. I'd want Wish You Were Here there. I would want 70s albums. I'd want Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols. I think that album should be in the top 10 greatest albums of the 70s. But anyway, what is the greatest album of the 70s? Here we go, my mercenaries. Dark Side of the Moon. Had to be, didn't it? It was a bit of a giveaway, it being so high in the overall albums of all time chart. Do you see what I mean about Dark Side of the Moon figures in 2,923 charts? It has the opportunity to appear in that many charts. It has more opportunity to appear in charts than OK Computer did. And yet OK Computer still won overall. So, Led Zeppelin 4 at number 2. Wish You Were Here. London Calling by The Clash. Ziggy Stardust. The Wall. The Wall. Would you put The Wall in the top 10 albums of the 70s? I've got a weird relationship with The Wall. I'm just thinking of glory holes now. I'm not sure if I'd put The Wall. Who's Next? Do you know what? I like the album cover of Who's Next. I've always liked that cover. I mean, I like a couple of the songs on it, but... Exile on Main Street. I forgot about Exile on Main Street. Rumours, of course. Blood on My Tracks. If you haven't listened to Blood on My Tracks, you've all listened to Blood on My Tracks. You've all listened to Blood on My Tracks. I think if I could change this chart, I would certainly, from my own personal thing, I would have Blood on My Tracks higher I would knock Who's Next further down. I'd knock The Wall off this completely. I'd probably take London Calling off. How is London Calling above Nevermind the Bollocks? I'd put Exile on Mainstream right up. Stream? Exile on Mainstream. Ooh, take your shoes off while you're crossing the street. Oh, that's all right. I'm going to jump on the stepping stones. You've seen the films. Every time someone in a film, usually a romantic film, but in any film, chooses to go across stepping stones, across a river, they will fall in. Okay. Moving on. The 1960s. This is an interesting one, my mercenaries. Who's going to have the #1 album of the 1960s? Let's think about some sort of order here. 60s. Now, I think personally, I've got to put the Beatles at #1. I would put oh blimey, which album do you put at #1? I'd probably put Sgt. Pepper or Revolver at #1. Now I know already that Abbey Road is going to be at #1, yeah, because it was the top of the Beatles in the overall chart. I need to have I don't think heavy metal's necessarily very well represented in these charts, but then they're going off. I keep saying they're going off the mainstream, but this is a chart that in the 80s put Joy Division, The Cure, and the Pixies. In the 60s, I need to have Black Sabbath in the chart. I need to have the Beatles. I need to have Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I need to have... What else do I need to have? What do I need to have in the chart? I think we need some Bob Dylan and perhaps some Tim Buckley. Happy Sad. What are you putting at #1? And what do you think will be #1? My mercenaries. Abbey Road, the greatest album of the 60s. Revolver at #2. Sgt. Pepper at #3. Now, you could say the Beatles have kind of taken the 60s chart by storm, but so they should, because the Beatles were the greatest band of all time. And the Beatles released, I don't know what, and the Beatles released some of the greatest albums of all time. And in some ways, these albums here, these 3 albums, define what an album is. So there you go. The Velvet Underground. We knew that would be there, didn't we? Because we saw it in the earlier chart. The White Album. This is like Ed Sheeran a few weeks ago in the charts. The Beatles are taking this by storm. Pet Sounds. Bob Dylan. Rubber Soul. The Doors. The Doors. Look, I'm happy the Doors debut album's in there. I'm happy that Blonde on Blonde's there. I love Blonde on Blonde. I love Blonde. I love Blonde on Blonde. I love Highway 61 Revisited. Pet Sounds had to be there. The Beatles. Look at it. The Beatles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums in the top 10. Dylan featuring twice. The Doors are there. I think that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. It's you know, it's okay. I think Black Sabbath were important enough to be there, but I can imagine they don't figure that highly in the general charts, you know. Okay, I won't take up much more of your time, my mercenaries. The 90s. The 90s. Who's going to have the greatest album of the 90s? So we know it has to be OK Computer, yeah? Because that's the greatest album of all time. So OK Computer's at number 1. Who's at number 2 in the 90s? This is a tricky one, isn't it? I personally would have Grace by Jeff Buckley at the number 1 spot for the 90s. I might have Grace by Jeff Buckley in the number 1 spot as the greatest album of all time. Will Grace figure in this general masses chart? Who else is going to be there? The 90s. R.E.M.? I mean, don't get me wrong, I did look at these charts yesterday, but I've got a memory like a sieve, my mercenaries. I can't remember at all. At all. OK Computer's going to be number 1. I think there's going to be R.E.M. There's going to be Oasis. Who were big in the 90s? How many Radiohead albums are there going to be there? Let's click on it. Let's have a look. Here we go. OK Computer's at number 1. Never mind. I forgot Never Mind. Of course, Never Mind. The Bends. Look at that. Radiohead take position 1 and position 3 in the chart. Neutral Milk Hotel. I don't know it. Do you guys know it? Is that worthy of being at number 4? I don't know it. My Bloody Valentine. I hear lots of good things about My Bloody Valentine. This album, Loveless. This is one of those most expensive albums of all time, Jobs. Not quite up there with Chinese Democracy, but it's an expensive album. And I used to own it. And I think I liked it, but I can't really remember. Pearl Jam, 10. What's the Story, Morning Glory, Oasis? Jeff Buckley is there with Grace. In Utero, Nirvana, Automatic for the People, R.E.M. What would I do with this chart? I would take Grace and put it up here. I'm happy with Nevermind. Nevermind changed everything. I know a lot of my mercenaries don't like grunge, and they feel that Nirvana kind of ruined the music that they liked by taking away hair metal, but it wasn't quite like that. And did you not, even those of you, and I'm talking mainly about people like Guitar Struggles and especially Evil White Clown Punk, did you, honest to God, the first time you heard Smells Like Teen Spirit, not just think, this is the greatest thing in the world? Did you not think that? Write your comments below. I know you didn't think it. The Bends. Is it wrong that I would put the Bends above OK Computer? Hey? Okay. Okay. I think What's the Story, Morning Glory probably deserves a higher place for what it did for, or didn't do, for British culture, society. Should we carry on? Should we do another one? Do you want to do the noughties? I didn't do a lot during the noughties, music listening wise. And I can't remember looking at this chart yesterday either. So what would be at number 1 spot in the noughties? Noughties. What albums did I enjoy in the noughties? I liked the Queens of the Stone Age album that had Dave Grohl playing on it. We got some new to follow. Songs for the Deaf. Quite like that one. That was the noughties, wasn't it? What else was released in the noughties? I liked the Iron Maiden album, A Matter of Life and Death. That was good. There was a couple of Trivium albums I liked in my noughties. I bought, oh, you'll hate me for this. I bought a Jamelia album. I bought an Avril Lavigne album. I want that comment. Why do you have to go and make things so complicated? I seen the way you... I bought Pink's debut album. I bought Shakira's out. Basically, my mercenaries, don't tell anybody, but in the 90s, I was buying hot women's albums. I owned pretty much all the Britney Spears albums. Shakira, Avril Lavigne, Jamelia, yeah. I quite liked, what was that Evanescence band? She was quite hot. Yeah, whatever. You guys don't like grunge, so you can't, whatever, right? Whatever. What's going to be number one in the noughties? What do you think? Points make prizes. What do points make? Let's have a look. Oh, wrong button. 2000s. 2000s! Oh, for holy bloody shit's sake! I forgot Radiohead, didn't I? Of course, Kid A is going to be at number one. Okay. So, oh, look down my list, look. There's bloody Strokes. I love the Strokes. Is This It by the Strokes? It's one of those albums, just like Nevermind before it. It's hard to remember the You know, sometimes it's hard to remember the... You know, sometimes it's hard to remember the impact an album first had on you once you've heard it another 100 million times. Nevermind, when I first heard it, changed everything. Is This It? Do you remember the impact that album had? Just after so much... After the likes of OK Computer and Kid A, everything getting so... You know, like that. Is This It was just... I liked it. I remember having a conversation with my bass player, and we spoke about we used to play gigs, and then we used to come home after the gig, and we used to just sit in the living room with music TV on. I think it was MTV at the time, or VH1, whichever one it was, MTV or VH1 on, and we'd sit up all night. We wouldn't go to bed, not together anyway. We wouldn't go to bed. We'd just sit up all night talking, because I don't know if it's the same for you guys who gig, but when you come back for a gig, you're on a high, an absolute high. And the Strokes came on the TV. It was the first time I'd ever seen them. And it was the song, Leaving Carolina. She said, I'm not like that. You miss a bus, but you miss the last train. It's hard to explain. Hard to explain. And he was telling me how the Strokes were his favourite new band and how they were going to be the next big thing. And I was just arguing that the singer was really kind of sloppy and his vocals weren't high enough in the mix. And I thought he said they came from York. Honest to God, this is a true story. I misheard him, and I thought he said he came from York. Now, York's a place just up... Well, it's up the road. It's a few hundred miles up the road. But it's up the road, and I thought, I'm not gonna big up a band from York. Screw that. So I was really putting this band down. He can't really sing. Too sloppy. Anyway, it turns out they're from New York. It just made me sound a little bit stupid, that's all. Not that York and New York aren't connected. One's just a newer version of the other one. But, yeah, it didn't come from York. It came from New York. New York! And once I knew they had that, hey, New York! And once you realise that they're all got connections in the music business, and one of them looks like a male model and he's married to so-and-so model, and not quite as rough and ready. There were no Sex Pistols, were they? There were no Sex Pistols, but Is This It? Yeah, that should be there, shouldn't it? The Arctic Monkeys, I forgot about the Arctic Monkeys, of course that's going to be there. I do own a Surf Jan Stevens album, but that's a weird thing. I'd never seen who Surf Jan Stevens was. And I always pictured, when I bought the album, I pictured Surf Jan Stevens being like a 70-year-old bloke playing folk music. And I saw a photograph of him recently. Even now, bearing in mind this is years ago, even now he still looks young. So what was I talking about? The White Stripes, that same bass player, maybe that same night, bigged the White Stripes up to me. Coldplay, I forgot about Coldplay. Oh, for God's sakes. Yoshimi battles the Pink Robots. Yeah. Okay, I just forgot about all the music I was listening to in the noughties. I was listening to music in the noughties, my mercenaries. What the hell was I talking about? I would put Yoshimi much higher. Much higher. Kid A. Yeah, we'll leave Kid A at the number 1 spot. That's fine. I know a lot of Radiohead fans have, I think Bill does especially, hold In Rainbows as a very special album. So they'd probably put In Rainbows higher. Again, I don't really know Arcade Fire. I don't really know Wilco. But I think the Flaming Lips should be higher. And maybe even the Strokes should be higher. Do you want to look at the 2010s? Do you want to have a guess what the current top album is? Again, I can't remember what the chart said. I think I won't know any of this, but I think that Kanye West's going to be at number 1, isn't he? Or Beyonce? Am I the only person in the world who hasn't listened to Beyonce's Lemonade? Or even, I was going to say even wants to drink her lemonade. There was a time when I wanted to drink Beyonce's Lemonade. That, the video for I'm a survivor, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to stop, I'm going to work harder, or whatever the fuck the lyrics are. I wanted to drink her lemonade back then. Yeah. Beyonce, Kanye West, what's the other ones that I keep hearing about? Kendrick Lamar. Just makes me think of Mark Lamar. Remember Mark Lamar from Nevermind the Buzzcocks? Back when Nevermind the Buzzcocks was good. I'll tell you what, it did get good again a little while back when they had that really sarcastic bloke who wasn't afraid to just launch into shit celebrities and make them cry. Remember the time he made that bloke who was on Celebrity Big Brother cry and he walked off? Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West. What are current bands? I can't think of any current bands. Coldplay. There's going to be no King Giz. Right, let's have a look. Speak now or forever hold your peace. What's going to be at number 1? I'm going to say... Oh, Drake. There's another one, isn't it? Drake. I don't know any of these people. I'm going to say Kanye West or Kendrick Lamar. Neither of which I know particularly. I did listen to a Kanye West album. Remember I told you about it, my mercenaries, a year or so ago? I did a video about it where I said I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen to Kanye West's best album and tell you what I think about it. And listen to it, and it was called... I can't remember what it was called. But it was really good. What can I do? It was really good. I can't lie to you. Okay, the 2010s. Okay, at number 1, Arcade Fire. Why didn't I think of that? They've been in the top of every bloody chart, and I still didn't remember to say them. That's it. I listened to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. What an album. If you haven't listened to it, if you're a naysayer like I pretty much am about these things, go and listen to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. It's very good, my mercenaries. Kendrick Lamar, like I say, I don't really know him. Kendrick Lamar again. Don't know him. This is interesting. Tame Impala, Lonerism. Now this is an album I'm going to have to do a reaction video to, because my new mercenaries have told me that if I like King Gizzard, then I will like this album by Tame Impala. So The National, don't really know them. Surf Jan Stevens, yeah. Vampire Weekend, Bon Iver, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Yeah, A Moon-Shaped Pool, not bad. Fine, I suppose. Where's David Bowie's Black Star? Where's Bowie's Black Star? Do you know what, my mercenaries? I don't think many of you would have stuck through till now. If you have stuck through till now, why not have a guess at the top album of the 1950s and put it in the comment section below? What do you think the greatest album of the 1950s was? Put it in the comment section below. Just those words. Whatever the greatest album of the 50s was. And then maybe in the next video, we'll have a little quick look and see which one of you are right. Just like Guitar Struggles wanted us to guess what sort of guitar he bought. I went for a Vox Teardrop. I should have known it would be an acoustic guitar. He said it would be really different. Why did we not say acoustic guitar? I noticed Rob Wheatley said acoustic guitar. Why didn't we say acoustic guitars? I noticed he's bought a little one. And do you know why he's bought a little one? Because Guitar Struggles harbours a need to be more like Ed Sheeran. As well as wearing a t-shirt that says Guitar Struggles says relax. When he turns round, yeah, on the back it's got a picture of Ed Sheeran's face. Because he plays a little, when I'm cleaning windows. Thank you, my mercenaries. Oh, latest comment. Let's see what the latest comment says. Oxford English Dictionary definition of nostalgia: a sentimental longing or wistful affection for a period in the past. Methinks the perfect 10 has the better of you on that particular issue. The banter between you both is much better than listening to an album that I don't want to. So for the first time in both series of the Mercury Prize review, I have not listened to the album in question. I'm not sure if that is a good or bad thing. It's a very complimentary comment to me. I suppose you don't have to listen to the album. Who'd have thought it? People just listening to me talking about an album. They're not listening to the album. My mercenaries. Over and